welcome to today's virtual food delegation. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Virginia Birrell, the CEO of the Australia-China Business Council, and we're delighted to have you here today. Before we begin, I'll just make a few comments in relation to translation. Today's session will have 2 language channels available to our guests. This is generously provided by our good friends, Professor Charles Chin and Elaine Tian of Chin Communications. I would like to take a moment to guide you through how to access our remote simultaneous translation. We'll just have some screen sharing in a moment. Down the bottom of your screen, you'll see a button labelled Interpretation. Click on this button and select the language you're most comfortable with and would like to hear today's session in either English or Chinese. If you're bilingual and do not need interpretation, you can choose Off. In order to isolate your chosen language, please click the button directly below the language you choose, labelled Mute Original Audio. This will prevent feedback. Once this is done, you'll hear just my voice if you're on the English channel. Otherwise, you will now start hearing simultaneous translation from our wonderful interpreters, Charles and Elaine. We'll also include these instructions in the chat box below. As mentioned, my name is Virginia Birrell and I'm the CEO of the Australia-China Business Council in Victoria, and it's my pleasure to be your MC for today. We're grateful to Invest Victoria for working with us on this event in the form of a virtual business-to-business matching session while international travel remains on hold. We certainly miss welcoming our delegates coming in from China, so we're delighted we're able to do our event with you today. I'd like to begin by welcoming our esteemed delegates who are now on the line and on screen with us now. Stephen Wan, Australian CEO of SEC Group. Fantane Wu, Board Secretary at LifeSpace Group. Scott Nee, Senior Director of E-Commerce at Alibaba Group Australia and New Zealand. Jackie Wong, Strategic Project Manager at the Melbourne branch of Chase Sun Pharmaceutical. Jack Jiang, President of the Australia-China Agribusiness Association. And Joe Zhu, Director of Australian Dairy Park. Welcome to you all and thank you for joining us for today's exciting virtual business delegation looking into Australian educational and industry capabilities in food innovation. We have an exciting assortment of speakers on our agenda today, a copy of which has been sent out to all attendees before the event, along with speaker bios for your reference. Extending from federal agencies to industry players, today's session hopes to present a holistic picture of the Australian agribusiness and food innovation sector, with specific focus on Victorian capability. To kickstart today's session, I'm pleased to hand over to Invest Victoria Associate Director Katerina Aleksoska to provide an Invest Victoria welcome to today's delegates and attendees. Over to you, Katerina.
Thank you, Virginia. Ladies and gentlemen, before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we're on the land of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people on whose unceded lands we conduct our business. We acknowledge their unbroken connection to the land and community and recognise the strength, resilience and capacity of Aboriginal people in Victoria and across Australia. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome our virtual delegates and guests from both China and Australia to this Food Innovation webinar, co-hosted by Invest Victoria and the Australia-China Business Council, Victoria Division. I'm delighted to be able to introduce this forum that, as you mentioned, features speakers from both the public and private sectors, including Agricultural Victoria, the CSIRO, Monash University and V2 Food, to showcase the depth of Victoria's innovation capabilities and opportunities in the food sector, one of Invest Victoria's priority sectors for the attraction of international investment. For those of you who are unfamiliar with us, Invest Victoria is the Victorian Government's investment attraction agency. reporting to the Treasurer in his portfolio as Minister for Economic Development. We have over 20 staff in Melbourne working across different markets, with 23 offices around the globe to focus investment attraction activity, including the 5 China offices located in Shanghai, Beijing, Chengdu, Nanjing, and Hong Kong. The Invest Victoria team also includes colleagues who pursue research and industry collaborations with Victorian-based universities, a policy and strategy division that assists investment attraction activity with research into key market trends, and an investment facilitation division that includes our experts in planning and regulatory approvals to assist investors with the complexity of approvals across the 3 layers of government in Australia. In 2020, our Minister released a new and more targeted investment attraction strategy for Invest Victoria, which focused on 3 key domains to target our foreign direct investment attraction. Sectorally, we focus on a handful of industries where Victoria has competitive advantage, including agtech and agri-food. Capabilities, by which we mean the drivers of future economic performance, including research and development capabilities and the commercialisation of new ideas. And being a government body, we must also deliver on place-based and broader government priorities, such as realising the opportunities of our development precincts and growing regional jobs. With an economy larger than Singapore's, the Victorian economy is the engine of Australia's economy. We are 20% of Australia's landmass, but we are close to 40% of GDP. However, as demonstrated by the pandemic, global economic conditions are changing, and technological and other changes threaten our existing industrial and manufacturing base. The Victorian economy must pivot towards the horizon industries and opportunities provided by a knowledge economy, including in the agtech and food innovation sectors. Victoria is home to Australia's food and fibre industry. We are Australia's leading state in the production of meat, grain, fruit and vegetables, and dairy products. Driven by innovation, Victoria has high quality food produce and has a well-deserved international reputation for food safety and biosecurity systems. Victoria's reputation for food quality is driving market demand from over 100 countries globally, including the growth markets in Asia generally and in China in particular. In 2019-20, Victoria maintained its strong export performance, generating food and fibre exports valued at 14.5 billion Australian dollars, reinforcing the important role that agriculture plays in Victoria's economy and for Victoria's communities. We're also Australia's major food processing state, accounting for 1/3 of the processed food capacity in Australia. Our food manufacturing sector is renowned for state-of-the-art technological advancements, high-quality food safety systems, and a highly skilled workforce. Victoria has a proven track record of success in attracting high-profile international industry investors, including investors from China, such as Mengniu, COFCO, and BioHealth. As a national leader in food research and development, Victoria is home to 15 industry R&D and innovation centres and accounts for approximately 40% of Australia's food processing R&D activities through extensive collaborations between government and industry. Invest Victoria works closely with investors exploring opportunities in Victoria's food and agribusiness sectors. We offer investors a range of professional services and support, providing advice on areas such as the availability of skills and workforce capability, infrastructure, business networks, and regulatory approvals. Our investor facilitation team can offer a site identification service to investors seeking properties for commercial, industrial, or retail operations. The team can tailor options to each investor's needs, whether they are looking for a greenfield or existing site, whether it's in metropolitan Melbourne or across regional Victoria. We also provide access to assistance at all levels of government, as well as ongoing investor support locally and globally through Invest Victoria's extensive network of overseas offices. Invest Victoria have a range of financial incentives available for companies looking to invest in Victoria. We are particularly interested in working with companies who want to partner with us in research, trials, testing, and the development of new products, processes, and innovations. If you require any support or would like to discuss the opportunity to invest in Victoria, please contact my colleagues either in Melbourne or in China. And with that, I'd like to hand over to my colleague, Jining Yang, the market lead for China, to introduce the virtual delegates, and I really hope that you find the seminar both useful and informative.
Thanks. Sorry, Kat. Yeah, it was a bit of on mute. It's great pleasure that Invest Victoria has invited our 6 VIP delegates. These delegates, or the companies that we invited, they're all clients of Invest Victoria, and they represent a broader interest in food and health products R&D, manufacturing, distribution, and marketing. Virginia has mentioned the names of our delegates. Just to give you a bit of more background about each of our delegates. We have Stephen Wan, the CEO Australia of SEC Group. I can see Stephen on the screen. SEC is a large Chinese enterprise engaged in pharmaceutical, healthcare, and new material industries, and Stephen heads up the SEC's Australian operations. We have the second delegate, Fan Tin Wu, Director of the Board Secretary, and Corporate Service Director of LifeSpace Group. LifeSpace is a Victorian-based manufacturer and supplier of probiotics and nutraceutical supplement products. Its parent company, By Health, is one of the largest manufacturers and suppliers of nutraceutical supplements in China. We have the third delegate, Scott Nee, the Senior Director of E-commerce with Alibaba Group Australia and New Zealand. We all know Alibaba as a global e-commerce company. Alibaba established its Australian and New Zealand headquarters in Melbourne in 2016, and that's through the support of Invest Victoria. We also welcome Jackie Wang, the Strategic Project Manager with Chaisan Pharmaceutical. Tianjin Chaisan Pharmaceutical is a China-based company principally engaged in the research, development, manufacture, and distribution of pharmaceuticals and healthcare products. Invest Victoria has been working closely with Jackie and Chaisan to explore a range of research and investment opportunities in food innovation projects. We have the next virtual delegates, Jackie Jiang. I can see Jackie over there, Chairman of Australia-China Agribusiness Association. Jackie is currently in China, so in the front line. So Jackie, Australia-China Agri Association is a platform that support business connections in the agri-food sector between Australia and China. Welcome, Jack. And the last virtual delegates, we have Zhou Zhou, our old friends, the Director of Australian Dairy Park. ADP, Australian Dairy Park, is a Victorian-based formulated the milk powder producer, and ADP is also a client of Invest Victoria. So we welcome all delegates, and I'd like to hand over to Virginia to then formally start the presentations of this webinar. Thank you.
Virginia, you're just on mute. Virginia, you're just on mute still. Yep,
how's that? Good. Thank you. Apologies, everyone. Thanks, Jining, for your welcoming our guests. Now to today's presentations. I first welcome our Agriculture Victoria representative, Sebastian Quinn, Director of Export Development and Investment in our state. Agriculture Victoria works in partnership with farmers, industries, communities, and other government agencies to grow and secure agriculture in Victoria. Today, Sebastian will be presenting on Victorian Government Agri-Tech and food innovation initiatives and opportunities. Over to you, Sebastian. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Virginia. And just might just wait for my presentation to pop up if that's all right. Great, thank you, Zach. So thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm going to start with our bit of a discussion about our agriculture strategy, which was released in December last year. So if you just click onto the next slide, please, Zach. That's it there. The strong, innovative, sustainable, and new strategy for agriculture in Victoria. And I just want to touch on why it's a significant milestone for Victoria and for agriculture in Victoria in particular. So it's a whole of government strategy, and it's presenting a 10-year vision for where the Victorian government wants the agriculture sector to go in the future. Importantly, it's got 14 government commitments to deliver on the vision that it sets out, and it's also supported by a series of investments that the Victorian government's behind to help realise that vision. And one of those is ag tech, or supporting ag tech, which I'll speak to a little bit later. But what I'd really like to highlight, I guess, is that whole of government nature of the strategy. So it isn't a strategy for Agriculture Victoria, which is the government agency that I work for. It's a strategy that's been developed for agriculture in Victoria. So it's got whole of government support, and that reflects, I guess, the critical role that the Victorian government sees agriculture playing in the state, and the critical role that it plays in particular in supporting our economy. So we've heard a few stats already today, but one that stands out to me in the agriculture space, and particularly for this audience and in exports, is that Victoria is responsible for 28% of Australia's total food and fibre exports. There's 81,000 jobs that are involved in agriculture production in Victoria, and the gross value of production for the state in agriculture was $15.9 billion. So the agriculture strategy and its whole of government sort of nature recognises the vital and sort of integrated role that the agriculture sector plays across Victoria and plays in driving Victoria's economy and its ability to create jobs and grow. The strategy itself, more sort of beyond just reflecting those key components that the agriculture sector contributes to, is also really significant, I think, in that because it is a 10-year vision, it provides a level of certainty and leadership to industry and business about the areas of focus for the Victorian government in this space and where the Victorian government's investment is going. So you'll see from that slide that there's the strategy was supported by $115 million in funding to help implement the strategy in the 2021 state budget. And that investment and the strategy itself is aligned against 5 themes. So you've got them listed again on that slide: the recover, grow, modernise, promote and protect. For this audience, I think the grow theme is of particular relevance, which is a theme of the strategy and a theme that government investment is pursuing. And it's all about boosting the value and output of agriculture through increased exports, investment, greater diversification and new products. So as I said, I'll speak in a little while to what that looks like in the ag tech space specifically. But what's important about those themes and that investment and the certainty that the strategy itself provides is that it's a real platform to attract investment and to attract that investment with confidence. So the strategy and the work that we're doing, we feel really builds on a solid foundation that we have in Victoria and in the agriculture sector in particular, and that we can sort of forecast to a 10-year vision because we're building from a position of strength. We do have competitive advantages. And one of those is our sort of research and development capability. So we've got Agriculture Victoria Research, or AVR as it's known, which delivers cutting edge research to the agriculture sector in partnership with industry and international institutes. And through the strategy, again, one of those 14 government commitments that I touched upon earlier is about looking at better ways to commercialise that research capability. We've also got obviously world-class education facilities in Victoria and robust infrastructure to support supply chains. And through the strategy, and through the, I guess, the leadership and strong commitment that it represents from the whole of the Victorian government, we're also able to develop those capabilities from a really committed and stable operating business environment. And then again, all of these sort of qualities and strengths are on top of the fact that Victoria is already home to over a quarter of Australia's food and fibre exports. So I think, again, that's a statistic that's probably particularly relevant to the audience here today. So that sort of statistic, I guess, points to the networks, the capability, but most importantly, I think the premium quality produce and safe produce that we're able to take to consumers around the world. So I might, that's a sort of broad overview of this 10-year vision and strategic document that the Victorian government launched at the end of last year. I might now just do a bit of a focus on ag tech. So if we just click to the next slide, please, Zach. Thank you. So this, in Agriculture Victoria, we have a number of key initiatives to stimulate the ag tech industry and the on-farm adoption of digital technologies. So this slide provides a bit of an overview of three of those key initiatives, namely our research smart farms, our on-farm Internet of Things trial, and then our latest program, which is the Ag Tech Regional Innovation Network. And that component is part of that $115 million funding that's supporting the implementation of the strategy at the end of last year. These initiatives sort of aim to stimulate different parts of the ecosystem, from sort of research through to adoption on farm. And well, it's certainly not an exhaustive list of what we've got underway, but it does give a flavour, I guess, of the range of initiatives that we have underway in this space. So I might move on to the next slide, please, Zach. Thank you. So this is just a bit more information on Agriculture Victoria's smart farms. So our research arm, so that the AVR that I mentioned previously, Australian Victoria Research, or Agriculture Victoria Research, sorry, has a real focus on investing in its digital capability through the regional smart farms. The objective of the smart farms is to partner with industry to develop, test and demonstrate the latest in agriculture technology, or ag tech, and supporting industry to develop skills to support that technology. So you'll see from that graphic that's in front of you now that these facilities are dotted across Victoria, and they're linked to key sort of agricultural industries that are attributed to those parts of Victoria. So a couple of examples at Tatura, which you'll see there. We've got the world's first sundial orchard, which provides research on fruit quality, irrigation and orchard mechanisation. And then down at Ellenbank, which you'll see in the sort of bottom right hand of that graphic, there's the goal down there to be the world's first carbon neutral dairy, and that includes things like cows wearing sensors to measure activity and grazing efficiency. Just move on to the next slide, please. So this one looks at the sort of second of those three components that I talked about earlier, which is the Victoria's on-farm Internet of Things trial. So this is a trial which is based around a $12 million program, where we partner with 300 farmers to trial Internet of Things, or IoT technology, on private farms. The trial's being held across 4 regions and in 4 industries, so dairy, horticulture, and then sheep, and then grains. And in support of the trial, we've partnered with an IoT network provider to establish IoT networks across each of these trial regions, those 4 trial regions. You'll see there again on the slide that through this work, we've supported farmers to select appropriate technologies, including soil moisture monitoring, weather station, livestock monitoring, and then irrigation control systems. Our on-farm business economists are working now with participating farmers to understand the impact that the technology has on farm performance, and to really sort of, I guess, make that more as tangible as possible, and to deliver and develop case studies to support other farmers to decide whether to invest in IoT. And then just one more slide, please. Thanks, Zach. So this slide represents our regional innovation network, which again is a component of our ag tech effort that aligns directly with the agriculture strategy, which I pointed to at the start of the presentation. It's our newest sort of component, and so is in that development stage, but it's designed, I guess, to leverage the foundational work that's happening with the smart farms and the on-farm IoT trials. We are, again, sort of at that development stage, but the objective of the program is to bring together players in the ag tech ecosystem, so sort of address, I guess, an identified gap that we feel needs some investment and effort. So that's bringing together researchers, startups, corporates, investors, and farmers through facilitating increased sort of networking, collaboration, and cooperation opportunities. And again, you'll see that the approach is still to leverage and link as much of those other bits of work through the smart farms and IoT as much as possible. So that's probably enough from me, but again, thanks for the opportunity to talk a little bit about what's happening in Agriculture Victoria and the sort of exciting work that we have underway in ag tech in particular, but also the sort of, I guess, exciting ambitions that we have articulated through the ag strategy.
Thanks, Sebastian. I now have the pleasure of introducing you to Dr Ingrid Appelqvist, the Principal Food Scientist at Australia's National Science Agency and Innovation Catalyst, the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organisation, otherwise known as CSIRO. CSIRO's purpose-built Food Innovation Centre makes it easy for food, ingredient and equipment manufacturing companies to access Australia's extensive expertise, technologies and support in innovation. Senior Research Scientist and Group Leader for Food Structure in the CSIRO Agriculture and Food Business Unit, Ingrid is a food materials scientist with strong multidisciplinary interests in reformulating food to develop a healthier food supply for industry and consumers. Along with leading products in food structure design for healthy aging, active integrated matter food science, and championing and developing a research test bed in smart soft materials design based on human genetic blueprint, Ingrid is an unrivaled expert in food innovation and an asset to Australia's science community. It's a pleasure to have you with us today, Ingrid. Over to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. I hope I keep do tribute to that. I'm just going to share my screen, so hopefully everyone can see this. Share, sorry, it just says. Can everyone see this? Yes? Okay. All right, thank you very much. So I'm going to talk to you all a little bit around how we go about food innovation, and in particular around in agriculture and food. So I would like to first, if I can, introduce you to the sorts of core capabilities that we have in agriculture and food that we conduct in CSIRO. So we conduct work in plant and animal breeding. So this is to sort of help build resistance to disease or to pests, increase resistance to drought and extreme weather conditions, for example, but also to improve traits and functionality in a whole range of crops. We do a similar approach in, for example, aquaculture, where we're looking to improve the quality and the nutrition of things like prawns here or fish. We help farmers a lot with the efficient farming systems to increase yield and profitability through, for example, helping them to identify the best irrigation to be doing, what would be the appropriate level of fertilizers and herbicides that they could be using. So they're maximizing their sustainability, if you will, and reducing input costs. We do quite a lot of work with global agriculture, and this is where we help to do a lot of technology transfer to support farmers in other countries, for example, in Africa. So we tend to provide appropriate technologies that they are able to adopt and which will help them improve their crops or improve the yield of the things that they are growing. We are looking also in digital agriculture to start using more digital technology across the whole value supply chain. And this is from helping support animal welfare, so looking at stress in animals, how much they move, how much they eat, including having virtual fences so that they're not actually injuring themselves with real fences. And the area that I come from is food science, and we cover everything from consumer to sensory science, understanding the consumer, right the way through to the raw ingredients, looking at ingredients interactions, and then how does those ingredients form products. So a lot of food materials science. We use multidisciplinary teams, and we also include a lot of collaborators and partners in order to support our increasing our capabilities. We have a number of infrastructures. So we have 2 pilot plants. So we have one in Victoria, and we have one in Brisbane. And this is a facility that we work very closely with our clients. So a lot of our clients come in and do a lot of processing. So they do a lot of product development. We help them identify what processes would be the best that they could use, and help them do a lot of product development to improve or manufacture new products. We have a lot of capability that we have, which is accessible to a lot of clients. So anything from wet extrusion to dry stack extrusion that you can see, spray drying, retorting, high pressure processing, and many others. And all of these are accessible to our clients to come and use. What we're also starting to do now is what we're calling end-to-end manufacturing. So this is where we have, sorry, I'm just trying to see if I can come off. No, here. That's better. So this is, for example, where we're building a grains and pulses application center. And so what we need from end to end is that we can take the raw materials, in this case, the grains, we can start to clean, de-stone, hull, and go right the way through to the process until we get to the wet processing, you know, where we're actually forming real products and actually producing products within the pilot plant, which can be then ready to go to the supermarket. We're actually doing this in collaboration with an equipment manufacturer. So they are actually going to come onto our Food Innovation Center that you can see in that first picture. And they're going to put their equipment in our pilot plant so that we can attach that to our processing facilities and therefore have a full end-to-end. And this is something that we're really keen to collaborate with and find partnerships if companies want to highlight certain processes or want to increase their processing capacity by collaborating and partnering with us. So this is just an example of one of our end-to-end processing capabilities that we have. So this will also allow us to do toll manufacturing. So for a small company who perhaps is just starting up and wants to start to manufacture product and do not have their own facilities, we can actually manufacture product on their behalf. The way that we run our research is that we look to focus on impact areas. And one area that I was asked to highlight a little bit was around alternative proteins or future proteins. We see this as a high growth plant-based market area. So we're seeing in many parts of the world that consumers are beginning to want to eat more plant-based products. This is to help not only for health and well-being for themselves, but also to promote health for the planet and sustainability. So some of the projects that we've worked on, and including I've indicated even some of the companies, is we're producing plant-based alternative to meat. So this is with a company, that V2 Foods, that we have co-created. They're producing these meat patties for both in supermarkets, you can buy them already, but also in a fast, quick service restaurant, which is very famous, and they're producing these burgers. So they taste quite a lot like meat and feel like meat. And this is an area that is growing very, very quickly. We also do a lot of what we call scale up. So we're improving, for example, in lupin, which is grown in Western Australia. And we're working with Wide Open Agriculture as our client, who's looking to improve the lupin plant by increasing not only the protein content, but also how we can scale up the production of lupin as being one of the resources of making alternative plant-based products. As I mentioned, we do a lot of work in aquaculture to boost the value and certainly the sustainability, the farming side of this. And as a big industry for Australia and globally, we're looking to improve the growth rate, for example, of prawns, as well as the nutritional, increasing its protein and nutrition. The other area we're focused on is sustainable ingredients. So, for example, we're looking to use the byproducts or the on-farm food loss that happens across the supply chains, especially the horticulture supply chains in both fruit and veg, to try and regain some of the nutrition that is lost by food loss, and to develop them into novel ingredients that are really high value and highly nutritious. And we work with another small company, which we co-created, NutriV, to start to produce these sorts of vegetable ingredients. We're also looking, as I mentioned, to increase yield in a whole range of other plant-based crops. So soybean is another one. And we're also introducing what would be very novel processing. So, for example, we have a shockwave, and that's in our Brisbane pilot plant. It's the one of only 2 in the world. So CSIRO looks around the world to try and bring in new technologies to just demonstrate what they might do, and to start to investigate what value it can bring to the food industry. In this case, we are looking at technology to tenderize meat in a non-invasive way. The other area, impact area we look at, and we have a lot of capability in this, is in trust in the food supply. As you know, we've all been going through a very rough time with COVID-19 and also with the increasing extremes of climate that we endure. And so building resilient in our food supply chain is becoming more and more important, and particularly around the traceability and transparency of supply chains, so that we know exactly where the food is coming from and what conditions it has seen throughout its life, from where it's grown on the farm to where it actually gets eaten in the household. We are developing what we're calling a trusted agri-foods export mission. So this is a research platform that is looking to bring in robotics and automation to help with compliance, to verify provenance, but to also accelerate and make our supply chains much more efficient and effective. And we're also conducting a lot of work around sustainable diet. So as I mentioned, consumers are changing, starting to look more carefully around their health and well-being, not just for themselves, but also for their planets. So understanding how we can transform the food supply to make it more nutritious and healthy and sustainable is a real focus for us, and something that we're hearing a lot from consumers wanting more of research to be getting an understanding of. And then the last area that we have a big focus on is around specific consumer segmentation. So this is where we're actually working with government organizations and to, for example, try and entice and increase the amount of fruit and veg that young children eat, get them to understand the benefits and to be involved with the cooking and eating of it. So we have a taste and learn program that is curriculum aligned, that is to be taught in the schools. And this is something that we have started it with primary schools. And what we found as a consequence is that the children are more engaged and interested in tasting veggies. And if we can create the habit while they're still very young, they take this on into childhood as well, into adulthood. We're also developing toolkits. So we have an in-home sensory toolkit, which is faster and cheaper to collect sensory, and in this case, flavor measurements from consumers in their home. So we can get a lot of valuable data around what consumers think about products, how they've tasted, and actually also link their genetic code. So how for example, understanding, their sensitivity to different tastes, we can start to segment products according to their preferences. And we're also looking as well at the elderly. Australia and many other countries are aging. We have an aging population, and we're looking to see how we can design food specifically for the elderly that is still tasty, highly nutritious, but has the sort of textures that is appealing to them and that allows them to eat the product safely without any difficulties with swallowing, for example. I was asked to look or talk about a little bit more around our flavor research, particularly around sort of flavor masking. We have developed a number of models that allow us to look at flavor intensity as a consequence of different components. So this tastes both taste and flavor, so that we can start to look at what cross-modal interactions. In other words, how do we enhance a flavor by mixing the right taste components and the right aroma components? How do we mask off flavors by being able to increase certain other tasters that make it which are good at reducing or masking off flavors? And this is a technology that, or an approach that we've used, for example, to look at reducing salt and sugar in products, but without reducing the sweetness intensity or the saltiness intensity. So we're able to use these maps to see where we can actually start to reduce the concentration, say, of sugar or salt that doesn't have an impact on the overall flavor intensity. Just to finish off then in the last couple of slides, we have a number of business models for our client engagement. The one I want to talk about is company creation. And this is where we have co-created companies out of an idea and created a company to sprint very quickly to develop the products. V2 Food and NutraV that I mentioned earlier are two such companies that we have co-created and are now doing really well and being able to sell product in the market. This is a way that has allowed us to accelerate innovation and really get product to the market very, very quickly. We have also our Food Innovation Center, in which we are looking to help small to medium enterprises in particular, so they can come and with an inquiry, and we will find the right researcher to help them conduct the work. And we will also have, through the Small to Medium Enterprise Connect and collaborations, that we can actually help fund some of those projects as well. And then we have our key clients who we focus on quite a bit, where we look to partner with them to develop new products or new science areas that they might well be interested in. And this is usually a long-term relationship that we have with them. These are the types of companies then that we have worked with, and we work with many companies, international companies as well as national, large companies and much smaller ones, and certainly very keen to talk to anyone that would like to work with us. And at that point, I'll stop. Happy to take questions.
Thanks, Ingrid, for your very insightful presentation. Now, we do have a question in Mandarin. If we'd like to just pause for one moment, I'm wondering if our translators can read the question in Mandarin. Okay, are we able to?
Hello, I'm Joe. Can I ask some question?
Yes, certainly. Thank you.
Yeah, we last year invested camel farm due to the use collected the milk to processing production, milk production, but through the testing, the fat is lower than the China GB standard requirements. Can we through the grains, can I through the grains change the milk the fat level?
Yes, so actually we have done some work on camel milk, looking at the components and comparing it to cow milk, and for sure the potential during the process to change the level of the milk of the fat. It might mean that you need to add additional fat or take milk from different camel herds and mix them together until you get the same right level of fat. This is often done with cow milk anyway. They change the level of the protein, or they change the level of the fat as well. So it is something that can be done, and we have worked on camel milk in the past.
Okay, sounds good.
Good. Thank you. Thanks, Ingrid. That's very, very helpful. And thank you for the question too, Joe. I would now like to introduce the second Research Institute keynote speaker, and we turn to the tertiary sector, where we have Chris Su from Monash Food Innovation Centre to provide an overview of the work and market initiatives that he's involved with. Chris has a PhD in bioengineering from Nanyang Technology University, a Bachelor of Engineering from Polymer Materials and in Engineering from Zhejiang University, and is a native Chinese speaker. However, he'll be presenting in English today for the convenience of our translators. So over to you, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. Thank you. So maybe I just try to start by sharing my screen. Share sound here. Okay, so I hope that everyone can see my screen well. Yes? Okay, good. All right. So actually, I just checked, quite quickly checked who else in today's panel, and also who else attended today's meeting. And I'm very glad to see, I saw we have about 60 participants in today's webinar. And I'm very proud to say I have met or have talked to probably half of the participants in this webinar. So very glad about that. But for some of the new friends, I'm very happy to share some sort of very high-level overview of the Monash and also Monash Food Innovation to you. And even for my old friends, I hope my talk will be giving you some sort of the refreshed knowledge about the Monash. All right, so let's start. As many of you may know, Monash is kind of one of the youngest university, definitely not older like Uni Melbourne or Sydney University or any other university in Australia. It was just established in 1958 on the time when it formally commenced to recruit students. I think it was only 347 students commenced, but now we have had more than 86,000 students, including domestic and international. Having said that, Monash, I'm also proud to say, Monash is one of the most globalized universities in Australia and probably also in the world. At the moment, we have our campuses across 3 continents. We have one campus in Suzhou, China. We have one campus in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. And just last year, we opened the first Australian university in Jakarta, Indonesia. And also, we also have some other campus in Italy, and also one, we just recently closed one of our campuses in South Africa. But so far, we have in total 4 international campuses overseas. And in Australia itself, we have 4 campuses. All of them are based in Victoria. And Monash Food Innovation is currently sitting within enterprise and the governance portfolio of the Monash University. As you can see, this kind of the three triangles, the triangle or sort of the circle. You can see MFI is in the middle, and under MFI sort of the strategy, we have 3 main pillars: innovation, education, and research. And on top of these 3 pillars, you can see we have quite a few facilities that are available and or accessible to our clients. And also we are working closely with our 10 faculties within university to help them to either further commercialize their research or help them to bridge a connection between them and our industry partners. So I might just go sort of the pillar by pillar. The first pillar is our education and training components. In Monash Monash Food Innovation, we have sort of developed our own methodology. We call it MFI innovation methodology. Using our methodology is really to help our clients to increase the success rate. Because if you look at the the top line, the red one, you can see the traditional approach. Usually the FMCG or food companies, when they go through this approach, usually the success rate will be only 10%. But with our sort of the addition or our normal methodology, particularly at the front end, we put the consumer inspired design in the front end, and also in the middle to late end, we also put sort of the failure point animation or kind of some faster failure exercise and led to at the mid to late end. So by doing this way, we can really increase the success rate to 30 to 50%. That's why we can't guarantee 100%, but we are very proud to say we can increase the success rate by 3 to 5 times more than the usual way. And here comes to more details about our point of difference. You can see this 4 main components when we do our innovation pathways. The first one is knowledge mapping, and the second one is the product mapping. But after these 2 mappings, we will do very robust ideation with our partners. And together, we will also introduce the consumer test to quickly test or pressure test our ideas to find out which one will be the best ideas for catering the market needs. And just try to use clothes as one example. Over the last 2 years, I think 3 years, we have been helping clothes category managers, or usually we call them buyers, to train them or equip them with our innovation methodology. We have been successfully delivered the innovation workshop to close the category managers, offering by proven methodologies or mapping tools, or even help them to do the ideation against their defined the challenges. And here goes to the pipeline or sort of the streamline of the whole methodology. You can see from knowledge mapping, product mapping, all the way to the idea refinement. And also we'll include the shopper research and the virtual planograms at day 2. In knowledge mapping, usually we will help the clients to explore what the segments or behaviors or even preference of the clients would be, and also understand the markets, the shares, portfolio, and also the products formats. For product mapping, usually we will help the clients to understand how the products or the product packaging would be relevant to each other, and also what should be the right or the most appealing attributes to drive the perception. And during this exercise, we will be helping our clients to identify exactly the white space where their usual products will be lacking of. In the ideation and prototyping, we will bring our expert team to sit down together with the client to ideate and also prototype the best idea, and use our sort of preset the ideation scribble sheet to write down or even draw the prototype idea in their minds. For consumer speed dating, we will bring the potential or prospective consumers in our campus to do the sort of the consumer test. And then we will do a second round of idea refinement. And the other one is, I think, is also one kind of the very advantageous in our offering is prototype overnight. We have our in-house design team who can really sort of work hard or work overnight to bring the idea to life, and we're using our sort of 3D printing and other facilities to print out the product and to be presentable for your channel stakeholders. And here just some examples of our course prototype. I think this is about some new age beverage for next market. And this is also another facility sitting in our Katerina campus of Monash University. We have about, I think, it's a 230 degrees virtual planogram. You can really virtually see the supermarkets or even the shelves you want to put where you want to put your products onto. And in the shopper research, we have our shopper research studio, where we sort of catch the participants, the sort of eyebrows movement to test using the eye tracking technology to check which one or which position would be the most efficient or eye sort of tracking point for the consumers. And then we sort of use the whole methodology to apply for our new clients, which are coming from Singapore. We have been partnering with Enterprise Singapore, which is a Singaporean government agency, to help them to help their members who are Singaporean food SMEs understand whether their products or their existing products would be suitable or would be favorable by Australian and New Zealand markets. By doing this way, we also recruit many Monash students through our Monash talent recruitment to form a team, to form a project team for the individuals, Singaporean companies. So far, totally, we have 16 Singaporean SMEs, 48 Monash students. We are running this program for 7 to 11 weeks. And here, just a snapshot for you to have a quick understanding about what are the brands from Singapore we are working with. And just some example, and this is some sort of outputs from the program. We produced some prototypes for this participating companies. And after that, we also collaborate with our network partner, George Gakers, to help our clients to further sort of help their products to penetrate to the mainstream supermarket in Australia, including Coles, Woolies, and Aldi. And because the COVID-19 last year, we will also be able to really pivot ourselves to a fully remote mode, which that means we can still use our methodology, but using the interactive tools to undertake the exercise. That means that we are really be able to upscale our capability to work more worldwide, no matter it's under normal or COVID normal or post-COVID eras. We will be able to really help our clients to go through the innovation journey. And in the education part, also I want to mention so maybe the first of these kinds, the master course in Australia, named the Master of the Food Science and Agribusiness. It's launched by Monash School of Chemistry, but it's already recruiting, I think, the second cohort of the students from domestically or internationally. So in research part, as one of another pillar of the Monash Food Innovation capability, I would say we have sort of also all through the chain, the capabilities within Monash. You can see from the agriculture or on farm all the way to post-farm processing, even to the consumer and market assessment. So here you can see there are many 5 main components in our research portfolio, including nutrition, food waste, food trust, food production, and also more importantly is commercialization. I might just take one as an example to further illustrate. For the nutrition, we have our BSE. BSE stands for Be Active, Sleep and Eat facility, just down the road in Wellington Road. In this facility, we can help our clients to further substantiate their products, the healthy claims or nutritional claims. And also, like Wi-Fi as one of the signature invention from CSIRO, Monash also have another sort of the signature invention named the load form map. The load form map is kind of the certification program for food industry, where their food products can be certified as load form map. And so far, we have been working with company from local or from international, like Arnold's, Freedom Foods, or Nestle Health Sciences and Sanitarium, to further substantiate their products as certified as a load form map. And also there are 3 case studies I want to share with you. The first one is with Professor Louise Burnett. Her research is really looking at how to trace all the way to about the functional ingredients or functional biotics from on farm to the consumer. This is a work in collaboration with the Germany institute named Fraunhofer Institute. So this invention has been published in the IFT magazine. And second study is with Professor Tony Petty. It's about how to utilize the underutilized food waste, like pineapple, how to better utilize it and how to add value to their current value. And the third one is how to use membrane in our dairy farms. Given the time limit, I think I don't have time to share the video, but you can watch it on YouTube. If you just search the Oxfam, it's a collaboration work with Oxfam. You can just search Oxfam Monash, you will find the 1 minute video. And lastly, I think it's about the packaging design and packaging innovation. As I mentioned in our education part, we can do sort of the design sprints for our clients to really quickly bring the idea to life within the very short-term time frame. Usually the period will be required maybe for months, maybe 8 months, 7 months, but doing our way, we can really shorten the period from months to 8 weeks. I think one example is we work with this company, Petty Foods. We just used 8 weeks to bring this product onto the market. And also the other 2 examples with Sterling and CUB's vodka water or drink. We also use a very short time. Yeah. So that's all from me. Sorry, I'm running over.
Thanks, Chris. That's all right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Chris. That was terrific. I'm just conscious of time, and we're delighted to have Nick Hazell on board, who is an experienced food innovator, lecturer, and consultant, and CEO of the Australian startup V2 Food that Ingrid mentioned earlier. V2 Food is developing plant-based meat, building on a close collaboration with CSIRO to create tasty, sustainable and healthy products. So Nick, over to you without further ado. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to try and share my screen. And just get into screen share. So let me tell you a little bit about V2 Food, which is a startup in Australia. We've been going for a little bit over 2 years, but we're already the #1 plant-based meat company in Australia and exporting plant-based meat into Asia for quite some time already. So we're already opening up into the Asian markets. The first thing that I always say about V2 Food is that actually the reason why we exist is because of the existential crisis on the planet. And the problem that we're facing, which is a problem which is across the whole world, is that we as humans, we like to eat meat. And as we get wealthier, we like to eat more meat. And what is happening is that in developing markets, the meat consumption is growing dramatically. In China, for example, 30 years ago, meat consumption was 10 to 20 kilos per person per year. 4 years ago, it was 50 kilos per person per year. And 4 years ago, Xi Jinping said that China needs to halve its meat production. Since then, China's meat consumption has gone up to 60 kilos per person per year. If we carry on at this rate across the whole of the planet, we run out of land in less than 10 years. And by 2050, we will need 2 planets. We don't have 2 planets. And we don't want to use any more land. 70% of the world's land is already farmed. The rest is ecosystems which we need to preserve. So this is a major problem, and the solution to this problem will be plant-based meat, because you can convert meat from plants directly at 30 to 40 times more efficiency than via an animal, a cow or a pig or a goat. So this is the opportunity that we have. And for us, it's all about how fast can we go, how fast can we go, and what scale can we get to solve this problem. And we're moving very, very fast. Many plant-based meat companies talk about this as a vegan problem. There's not enough vegans in the world. I disagree. This isn't a vegan problem. There's a lot of vegans in the world, actually. It's funny. If you go to developing countries, if you go to Africa and India, perhaps, or developing markets, and you look at behavior and you might say, well, there's a lot of vegans. But if you ask them, are you a vegan? People will say, no, we're just poor. We don't eat much meat because it's too expensive. For us, the opportunity is for those people in Western markets to reduce their meat consumption, but to make plant-based meat affordable and available for those people who actually want to eat more meat. And they will do as soon as they economically can afford it. So we're not against the meat industry. We're actually very much part of the meat industry in Australia, and we partner with the meat industry in Australia. We founded just over 2 years ago, and the founding partners were CSIRO, Venture Capital, Main Sequence Ventures, which is actually the venture capital arm of the CSIRO, and a guy called Jack Cowan, who is from Hungry Jack's, which is Burger King in Australia. It's the Burger King franchise. Jack wanted to have a vegan burger in his Burger Kings, couldn't import them, and asked the CSIRO if there's any technology we can use to make one in Australia. They asked me if I could start a company to do that. My background is I've done product innovation for PepsiCo, for Mars, and have been part of creating a lot of food products which are in Australia and in Europe from those two companies. We started on the 17th of January 2019, we formed, and then in less than 9 months, we launched nationally in Australia with the Rebel Whopper in Hungry Jack's. We've had a number of fundings from venture capital, and we were about to launch into food service in Australia and abroad. But when COVID hit, we had to change our plans, and we launched into retail instead. And that's with people like Coles and Woolworths in Australia. And we're now the #1 brand in Australia for retail. And we're now expanding back into food service and expanding into Asia. We are selling Rebel Whoppers to most of the Burger Kings throughout Asia now, and have set up a team in China to expand into China. What we actually do, and the vision of what we do, is we want to create meat from legumes grown in Australia, convert them into plant protein concentrates and isolates, and we turn that into the ingredients which make meat. There's some technology there. There's some patents that we have around structure of meat and around color and flavor. But with these ingredients that we make, we then work with a meat producer, which could be a meat factory in Australia or elsewhere in the world. And they take our ingredients and can turn them into meat. And we design our system so that it works well with the meat producer. And this means we can get to scale. So in Australia, we work with 2 of the biggest meat producers in Australia. And they then supply that meat into the distribution throughout Australia. We're currently doing the work to understand the whole protein extraction part. At the moment, this is still in R&D. We still have work to do because there isn't a protein extraction industry currently in Australia. but we're investing in Australia to do this extraction. And we're growing legumes with the CSIRO, which have particularly high protein and particularly good flavor composition, ideal for making the best meat. I'm going to move quickly on actually now. Just a little bit about meat. Sometimes we don't really think about what is meat because it's always there, and we don't really understand, or we don't really think about what is it that we taste with meat. But when you think about eating a burger or a meatball, there's a lot of sensory things going on. There's a lot of texture things. There's chewiness, and there's crust, and there's juiciness, and there's color, there's fattiness. And to recreate that experience with plant-based meat is a big challenge. And we've broken it into 4 areas. So the textured protein that creates the chewiness and the texture, where we have some patents around how to get, most interesting, the most difficult thing to recreate with plants is very, very chewy, gristly almost texture, but it's very important in meat. If you don't have it, then it's soft and it's not really meat. We have IP around the flavor systems and the binders, color systems, and one of the most important things is how do you create realistic fat flavors and fat and oil systems. Meat without fat is not very tasty. You need to get the fat right. These are the sorts of things that we've launched in the supermarkets, burgers, for example. But at the same time, we've been developing products very much for Australia, but also for Asia. Things like pork that goes into dumplings, beef that goes into sanchoy baos, chili con carnes. We are also developing other meat varieties that can go into a variety of cuisines. And the important thing is that our meat, if you give our meat to a chef, they will cook it just like meat and they can do exactly the same dish. So if we give our pork to a Chinese chef, he will do a beautiful dumpling, or he'll do whatever he did with his pork in his restaurant. So it looks the same, it cooks the same, and it eats the same as the meat that everybody loves. We're continuing to expand across HoReCa and food service in Australia, and we're currently expanding globally. I think we're in 9 markets around the world, and we're just beginning our journey. The goal is to be a significant percentage of the global meat market, and we think this is very important in Australia, but it's even more important in Asia, where most of the people are, and where meat consumption is growing at its fastest. And then finally, what we want to talk about is sustainability. Even if we didn't have a carbon problem on the planet, and it was just about land, it would be very good to switch to plant-based meats. But in addition, we're trying to get our carbon footprint very, very low indeed. Currently, our carbon footprint is 2 kilos of carbon per kilo of meat. Beef, for example, is 40 to 70 kilos of carbon per kilo of meat. So we're already very low, but we think that we can get to carbon negative. And that's through supporting sustainable agriculture for growing our crops. And there's an idea that Australia could actually be a very big carbon sink for the world. And this is something that is an important part of our agricultural system. And we're doing research in soil science and carbon sequestration, as well as in making the most delicious plant-based meat. So that's V2 Food. We're on a journey. It's only 2 years old. We've got a lot more ahead of us than we've got behind us, but I think we've done enough work now in R&D and with CSIRO and with Australian universities to get us to a place where we can really see that this can be the future. And if we do this well, then we can actually be part of the solution for this this problem that we have on the planet, where we just can't feed ourselves with the meat that we want to eat. So that's V2 Food. So thank you very much, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Oh, thanks, Nick. That's terrific and very very exciting and innovative a great note to finish on. I'll just quickly pass to Jining to say a few words and then I'll make some closing remarks. Thank you.
Very thanks, Virginia. I think it's just a vote of thanks. We'd like to really thank ACBC for hosting this webinar with Invest Victoria, in particular, Virginia, yourself, and Zach for your wonderful support. And also, I'd like to thank the participation of our virtual delegates and also speakers, audience, and Gene Communication. Thanks, Virginia.
Thank you, and I'll just really reiterate a big thanks to Charles Chin and Elaine Tian from Chin Communications for your valuable translation and your terrific support of us and of Invest Victoria. I hope our delegates, attendees and fellow ACBC and Invest Victoria staff on the call all feel more knowledgeable and about the opportunities in food innovation in Victoria. I certainly thank our talented speakers for sharing their terrific information. I think it's an inspiration to us all as to where we can go from here. It's very important to showcase Australian innovation to our international audience in the hopes of creating greater business opportunities and mutually beneficial growth. Thank you to Invest Victoria, Jining and your team for your partnership in today's event. You've been our strong supporters over many years and we look forward to running future events with you, particularly virtual delegations as we're still not able to travel. Before I leave you all, just a quick reminder that a recording of today's session, along with a brief summary and B2B matching opportunities will be sent to you via email today, along with details on upcoming ACBC events. So sincere thanks to everyone on the line today. Have a lovely evening and good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. And also on a final note, we've got